So, welcome everybody to the first Big Data Value PPP data platform online session or webinar or video conference, however you want to call it. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this first session in a row of 3 sessions. My name is Andreas Metzger. I'm from Paluno, that's the Software Engineering Research Center of the University of Duisburg-Essen, and we're also a member of the Big Data Value Association, where I have the pleasure of being the Deputy Secretary General, and I'm also representing the B2B support action, which is mainly behind organizing this series of webinars. I would also like to thank my colleague Vanessa Stricker, you see here on the screen. She was instrumental in helping us setting up all the technology and platform, as well as Tomas Pariente Lobo, who was the support from the ATO side, also member of the BDV. So today we're focusing on one subset of the new tranche of big data platform projects. We called them mixed data platform projects because they're looking both at industrial and personal data, and I will say a few words a little bit later on. Quick agenda, I'll give you 2 or 3 slide introduction about some of the practicalities, but also about the bigger setting of where we are. And this will be followed by a few opening words from our colleagues from the European Commission. So we have Kimo Rossi on the line and should be joined a little bit later by Malte Bayer-Katzenberger. So they will give you a little bit broader perspective of where we are and maybe also what are the expectations from this project. And then we drill down into the actual presentations from the projects we have. Today it's 2 projects who are devoted to this mixed data scenarios. The first is the Trust project, which is represented by Alexandra Garatzogianni, Head of Tech Transfer at the Leibniz Information Center for Science and Technology, and also coordinating the Trust project. And our second speaker is Christian Wolff, Project Manager at ATB in Bremen, and coordinator of the smashHit project. So what we plan doing is having a 20-minute presentation followed by, if at all, clarification questions immediately to the presentations. If there are no clarification questions, we have planned a broader question and answer session afterwards where we can touch on several also traversal or cross-cutting topics, and then the usual wrap up and next steps at the end. A few practical considerations. So this is a go-to webinar, not a go-to meeting thing. This means there's a difference between roles. There are presenters and moderators, which are the guys you see, and we are the guys who can speak. All the other participants are basically on silent mode, but what you can do, and we appreciate if you do so, you will see on the right-hand side of the GoToWebinar tool or dashboard an area which is called questions, and there you can post your questions. I will try to make sense of these questions, maybe group them a little bit for the follow-up question and answer session or for the round of clarification questions. So feel free to start typing. Also, if you have any suggestion how to improve these kinds of webinars, you may want to think of a different model, different format, also just type away and we'll take this into consideration. Last point, you will see or probably have heard when joining the webinar that the thing will be recorded. So we agreed with all the presenters up front that this should be okay. Still, if anybody has some concerns, even after the webinar has taken place, please drop me an email if you don't want to have this in the public domain afterwards. Okay, so just to be on the safe side. All right, maybe now to the actual aims why we're doing this. The idea was initially to have a 2-day workshop in Brussels to bring together these big data platform projects in order to start collaborating, understanding each other, and also bringing this into the bigger context of the Big Data Value PPP. A part of the governance structure of Big Data Value PPP is the so-called technical and steering committee, which are really there so to really start aligning, identifying synergies and getting to know each other. This will now transformed into an online meeting, but this should not stop us start collaborations between the projects or even between the participants and the project. So if you spot any interesting hooks, maybe you're presenting other big data projects or other related EU projects, feel free to get in touch with colleagues. If you don't have their contact, let me know and I can establish the collaboration. What we're trying to do, and this was a suggestion to structure the presentations a little bit in a similar way, is to learn about the key aspects of these projects, which means obviously the main objectives, but also the expected key innovations. All these big data platform projects are innovation actions, so it should be of concern. see some of the interesting use cases, look at key characteristics of the data sets which are shared among the platform, maybe touch on the business impact, and what could be quite interesting, and this leads over to the next point, is understand, do you face any open questions regarding data protection, data sharing, data standardization? Because our ambition is to take the input from today and also kind of shape some follow-up webinars or sessions involving possibly colleagues from the BDVA task forces and expert groups to help discuss some of the specific topics. Okay? Resonating what I said before, we will make the results here public as a video recording, and this could be considered one of the first, let's say, public visibility actions of the BDVE support action to help your project being visible also in a broader context. So these are the main ambitions we have for today. I hope this will be a quite fruitful meeting. And as I said, if you have any questions while we discuss, present, just type away. Before I hand over to our colleagues from the Commission, last slide showing you the bigger picture, because I talked about these big data platforms the whole time. We clustered them into three main groups, and basically we started from the group at the very end, just for let's say calendar reasons, not for some priority or whatever reason. It was just a convenient schedule. Which are the mixed data platforms? So we have Trust and smashHit, as I said. Then we have a group of projects devoted to personal data and how this may be shared via platforms. It's the Kraken project, the Data Vaults project, and PimCity. And if you're interested in what these projects are doing, feel free to join the webinar on Friday, same time, different link, different registration, but you'll find it on the BDVE website on there. And the last cluster of projects is the industrial data platform projects involving data ports, DFSM, i3 Market, and Opertus Mundi, and they will have a session, a little bit longer one, tomorrow afternoon, again starting at 2. And with this, I think you should have enough context and background, and we can move to our colleagues from the European Commission. I think it will be Kimmo, starting with the opening words, and Malte, who's still in another meeting, may join and add a little bit more to that, if he's able to.
Actually, he is already there, so I will hand over the control to him.
Excellent. So I think Kimmo will say a few words without slides, and then Malte will follow up with some more detail.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Kimmo Rossi. I work in DG Connect of European Commission in a unit that is responsible for data innovation and policy. We are here with my colleague Malte to present you the background of the European data policy, how it all started and where we are now, and why do we have these data platforms now, and what are the data spaces that we want to see emerging tomorrow. In our unit, we are managing a so-called public-private partnership called Big Data Value. And the organizers of this series of webinars, they are the people who are the active members of this community, of this public-private partnership, or PPP, if we want to say, just say it briefly. This is for us a major policy-related funding action. The European Commission, through the Horizon 2020 program, is investing about 500 million euros to this big data action with the objective of creating a data economy where data assets would change hands the same way as commodities and services. This has more or less already have been achieved to a great extent for open data, but for closed data, industrial and personal data, this is still a dream, to be able to share valuable data in full compliance of the ethical and legal constraints. In order to get things rolling, we have a policy, and Malte will tell about the European policy and maybe regulation as well, but to make things practical, to make things happen before we can dream about a free exchange of data assets. We have decided already in the current funding program, Horizon 2020, to set up data platforms that are sort of first pilots of how this data free exchange of closed data might look like in the future. They are not toy implementation, I hope. The presentations that follow will demonstrate that. They are real and scale up to scale operations for sharing different kinds of difficult data. Difficult in the sense that it has restrictions. It's either confidential, commercial, or personal data, and that we have to be able to manage all these constraints. And yet we want to be able to share data assets, to give them, to exchange them, or to sell them against payment. So we have now this first portfolio of nine data platform projects, and they have just started this year. Actually, we were supposed to have this this workshop as a physical workshop the 17th and 18th of March. It was planned. It was already very advanced. And then we all know what happened. We were all sent home, teleworking, and all traveling. Traveling was banned and cancelled. So we waited a little bit for the dust to settle, and then we said that let's not throw wasted all this preparation work that was put into this event that did not happen. Now we have an opportunity to actually enlarge the audience of this event, so that now we can have more people listening to this, which we in the first place imagined would have been more of a closed event or an invitation-only event. But now this can be a more open event where anybody can join. So that's the advantage of having it virtual. So with this first portfolio of 9 projects that is going to be presented in these 3 days, in these 3 webinars, they are piloting data exchanges in different areas, and we will soon see in what areas they are operating and what exactly is the concept of each of them. We have great expectations for these projects because, as Malte will probably explain next, is that these will provide us models, role models or seeds for the common European data spaces. And there has been a recent communication in February about what we mean by data spaces and in which areas of society like health, mobility, energy, we are going to set up such data spaces to share essential data. So with this introduction, I hand over to my colleague Malte, who will tell you about the big picture and our plans for the future. Malte.
Yes, thank you, Kimmo, Andreas, Vanessa, for this exciting seminar. Shout if you don't hear me. It's also for me a very exciting day because, well, I've been working in Kimmo's team now for many, many years, and we've been preparing the work program that led to these projects together as we front load of a few years back. So it's like writing your Christmas wish list 2 years before Christmas is coming. And now it's the big day to maybe first interaction with the projects that come about. We had reflections a few years back already, what makes the data economy grow? And there were ideas about creating data ownership rights. But I think everyone converged that we need to facilitate voluntary sharing or monetization or trading, call it what you want, between businesses. And for me, it's clear there's maybe 2 models. The first model is you use a platform or an organizational arrangement that facilitates and orchestrates this change in an ecosystem, if it's not going to stay bilateral between 2 companies anyway. But if you want to orchestrate an ecosystem, you may need an orchestrator in the middle, and the project that we're seeing now are orchestrating such arrangements and hopefully deploying technologies that can scale beyond the concrete use cases. As we will see in a second, when we say data spaces, I have a slide deck here, but I'm actually hesitating to show it to you, because first I was a bit hectic this morning, and you see still some leftover recycling from a colleague that is giving not the same presentation, but a similar slide deck to a different meeting today. So I show you the image of this man, which is our political master. But the spaces that we want to design will be ambitious. They need to allow data sharing at a scale that organizes an entire sector. I may want to move maybe to the slide that illustrates this a little bit, but it's going to be screwed up by the different teams, so you don't see much what I wanted to show you here. There was some more graphics in the middle, but different devices don't make it easier. So the spaces should organize data sharing in an entire sector or domain, and not just solve a few use cases for a few companies, but you need obviously to crystallize the emergence of such a space around tangible outcomes for concrete companies, because otherwise it remains a bit of a lofty goal. And we're trying now with these projects that we're seeing today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow, to see what are technological enablers that are on the market that can be made robust through piloting, testing in real life scenarios. And that can then build the technology that will lead to the emergence of the spaces. So a space is the ambition of organizing data exchange with an open number of companies in principle for an open number of use cases. And as every sector is a bit different in terms of the power relations, the data needs, is it personal data, is it more industrial data, what is the market with suppliers and neighboring markets and aftermarkets, how to organize, orchestrate, and govern the usage of data in space will be a problem for each sector to define. So the second message is there is no standard template what a space should look like. The space design should be happening by the sector. And this is now a big challenge on our side to basically orchestrate the kickoff and finding organizations in a sector to organize this. But I want to point to one good example, which is the agricultural sector, where the top level European business associations that represent all the different actors active in the agricultural market, from machinery to seeds to fertilizers to the farmers, they have come around to get to a code of conduct. And that shows that it's possible to organize a sector, and if the stakeholder organizations want so. And you have the same for the industrial data spaces, which also organizes quite well already at sharing in the manufacturing sector mostly. You have it in logistics, where in the Netherlands, at least there's a strong crystallization. So we are optimistic to be able to organize sectors, but then also to deploy the technologies. And the technologies and the reference architectures, some of them you perfectly know. And now we want to see, well, are they getting robust enough also with the help of these projects? And again, the sharing in the space is about very action. It's not something we want to enforce as European actors. It needs to make sense. What we want to set in place is basically that there is a structure called space where this data sharing then really is operationalized through technology, but also to legal arrangements and to organizational arrangements in terms of organizing the business stakeholders and the governance of the rules. Because the rules can be negotiated always bilaterally. It's very costly. You replicate a lot. But maybe you can also have club rules inside the space where there's a standard way of doing certain things or having classification schema for certain data. Because in the sector, there's a clear typology of data sets, and it helps everyone to agree, okay, these data sets are this, and they will be shared under these conditions, and these data sets are these, can be shared under these. And we get to a more standardized approach to data sharing across typologies. And this is really the vision for it. So with a bit of kickoff funding, hopefully under the Digital Euro program, a future funding program that we will kick in next year, we can deploy at least some of those. Sorry for the poor graphics here. So in some of the domains that you see here, technical tools for pooling and sharing, helping also with standards that are generic to all data sharing problems, helping with standards that maybe build bridges between domains and sectors so that the data don't stay in what we could call a new silo, that we have a support function in terms of governing rights on access and use of the data done by the stakeholders themselves, but maybe in a concerted manner, in a more standardized way. So that's not always the biggest who wins, or that we can actually enable an ecosystem which is not established by bilateral actions. And then having also, maybe if there's a demand for it, secure cloud-based processing storage capacities. I add to this framework maybe two things that stand a bit outside of a sector. The first is the supply of public sector data that could feed into many of the sectors, where the data would not be created inside the domain or sector, if you want, but that they could come up from outside, especially from the public sector. We have a strong open data tradition in the Commission, and we have an open data directive. We are beefing it up with a list of core reference data that we call high-value data sets from the weather services, from the geospatial services, from Earth observation data, Copernicus program included, from statistical data that we are now currently establishing as a list of data that all public sector bodies that are tasked to collect data have to make available for free and through machine readable, and through application programming interfaces. And then we have the question how to deal with the personal data. That's part of the program that we will see also tomorrow. The vision is, my vision is, from a human centricity perspective, it makes more sense to have one data space per person and not personal data spaces in each of the sectors. So the word that is covered by the beautiful round icon is the word spaces. Can also use personal data cloud or personal data wallet or whatever other word you want to use for this. We use personal data spaces, and that every individual in principle has one space with one set of data, the use of which can flow into different sectors, and wherever they're usable. And this would actually then allow consent-based data use. So it kills you one problem of GDPR. If you have consent, you're on the good side of most things. Collecting consent is a difficult thing, admittedly, but wherever you actually need to collect consent, we hope that with personal data spaces, tools, and apps, we could facilitate also the collection of consent. How does this now embed in a broader framework? So I started maybe from my last slide on what the spaces are and what they are. I want to maybe show you 2-3 considerations of the elements of the European data strategy. Commissioner Breton says we need to look at the data of the future, which are the IoT data, most of them collected in industrial use cases. We shouldn't look always at the data of the past, so the data that Google and Facebook and collect about us as consumers, because we probably have not won the war on these old platforms, but there is a future lying ahead. And how we govern the use of industrial IoT data is still open. Is it going to be for the platforms that we know, for the hyperscalers that we know from the cloud services, or is it for a new approach, peer-to-peer, international data spaces, and so forth, that is possible? We also found that we are maybe more struggling in Europe to create the data pools that you need to train AI systems. Anecdotal evidence from Siemens says that they rather do the AI training in the US because it's easy to get to the health information. So we also need to find different ways of doing data pooling in Europe, especially with personal data, in a way that European citizens would feel comfortable. Going back to the personal data spaces question, is that maybe a way to have consented data shipping into ports? We need to have more fairness also on the consumer-facing digital market. So we're not forgetting about the GAFAs and the big techs, but Thierry Breton's ambition is to not get stuck there too much, but work will ongo in terms of regulating also the GAFAs of this world. And then something that is dear to the Commission President to say, I want also to have the data usable for the common good. And the COVID crisis shows that there's a lot of data that is held by companies, which could inform a lot of public decision-making and better targeting of the healthcare response. And one of the things is that in Italy, it's as basic as that people would just not know how many hospital beds are there in the country. So the healthcare response cannot even plan accordingly because they have no good idea of what is there. Not to speak about now telco data, maybe you saw it in the press, being shared with our service joint research center to better model population flows. And my last slide. In order to react, well, the elements of the strategy can be divided into two. It's more the legal side and then the investment side. The legal side is that we want to support technical enablers and structures to come about. This concerns standards, this concerns one-stop shop mechanisms that you have, like in the Finnish Data Permit Authority, where you can go somewhere and you get insurances from you can get clearance on the legal rights. That we want to maybe work on clarifying in the IoT, industrial IoT, who has rights to use what IoT data and for what purposes, that we get a much more discussion on that one. That we work on consumer data portability so that the data are not locked away by Facebook and cannot be used by anyone else, or in your Fitbit system, or in your bank or in your telco, but you can actually have switching mechanisms where consumers say, no, I'm perfectly comfortable that someone else knows how I drive my car because this gives me better rates in the servicing and maintenance of my car. So I don't want to be stuck with the brand that sold me the car. I want to go to a different provider, and this provider should also have access to this data. I think here we're already in the Kraken project, if I remember well, almost in the automotive setting at least, where there's a lot of questions. Well, how can I make this more accessible? Is it the businesses to fight it over, which they're doing at the moment, or can the individuals have a say it's my car, it's my data, I want to have this person to know better how I drive so they can anticipate the repair cycles in terms of predictive maintenance situation. I have spoken about more open data from the public sector, and then articulation with the horizontal frameworks. There's a lot of in the data strategy you could read about finance strategies coming about, agriculture, that those colleagues that work on the different sectors that know them better would then be mainly in chief for designing data spaces and data strategies for the respective sector, which go into the specificities of each of the sectors. So this is horizontal versus sector. Last point, we've spoken already about the data spaces. This should be a high impact investment project by the Commission. It's working on trusted storage and processing, in other words, cloud, and maybe central and edge cloud included. Data sharing technologies, which is now the subject of the projects that we're looking at today, tomorrow, and after tomorrow. The way that they preserve what you call data sovereignty, so that it's fine grained access control in a sharing system. So it's not either open it all for everyone or don't open to anyone, but use the technology that is available to actually arrange for targeted sharing of the data. And that we then roll this out on a much grander scale. And with this, we solve a lot of digitization problems and can also maybe do it differently from having everything platformized by hyperscalers. This would be my intervention. And now I'm really curious myself to learn a bit what the different projects do, so that we can also get insights on where the state of the art is, what problems you're facing in getting these projects also to life with data suppliers and the data users. I'm really grateful for this. Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much, Malte, and of course also Kim for these very interesting insights from the Commission side. We don't have any immediate questions to your intervention, but of course, if anybody has some questions to our colleagues from the Commission, feel free to put them in the questions box, and we can follow them up later during the Q&A session. That's okay. Well, there's one question from our colleague Nuria de Lama from Atos, so I can ask them directly before we go to the presentations. Will this high impact project for common European data spaces be supported by the Digital Europe program?
A simple question, a simple answer, yes.
Very good.
A combination actually for the technicians of the funding schemes, it's a combination of the Connecting Europe Facility 2 and Digital Europe. We will see how it works out actually for the applicants later on. As you know, it's tied to the multi-annual financial framework. So on the budget, we're completely in the hands of the European Council and the member states to make the funds available to the Commission. Technically, the program starts in 2021. We're planning obviously for the funding items, but the amount that we can spend is completely unknown to us. But yes, it's the depth funded spaces.
Okay. Thank you very much, Matt. Okay, and with this, you raised the bar very high to what you expect now from the presentations. I'll hand over to Alexandra, who will present the Trusts project on trusted secure data sharing space. Alexandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Thank you, everybody. I'm very honored to be here and to have this opportunity to present the Trusts project. So Trusts stands for Trusted Secure Data Sharing Space. So we address the ICT 13 call on innovation action call on supporting the emergence of data markets and data economy. So the project started in January and has a duration of 3 years. So here you can see our multidisciplinary consortium. The project is coordinated by the Leibniz University of Hanover with its L3S Research Center, and we have partners from Germany, Austria, the Netherlands, Belgium, Israel, Greece, Cyprus, Spain, and Romania. So the Trust Consortium identified these 3 high-level challenges when it comes to data markets. For example, it is a fact that we have to enable the secure sharing of personal data in order to spur the growth of the economy in this regard. And for this, we absolutely need to have trusted and secure platforms. And this also includes the use of privacy-aware analytics in this regard. Moreover, it is a fact that up to now, most data economy or data sharing platforms are to a greater extent focused on open data. And if we really want to be more business oriented, it is a fact that we have to work more with proprietary commercial and industrial data, of course, complying with all legal and ethical frameworks and regulations in this regard. Moreover, another element that hampers the further development of the data market economy is the fact that we have many divergent technical standards, and this also various legal and ethical frameworks and many quality levels. So in Trusts, as you can derive from the title of the project, we really want to reinvigorate the trust in the data market space, and we aim to do that by further building on the experiences and lessons learned of 2 large national projects. This is namely the Data Market Austria and IDSA, and I will give you a further information about these projects later on. So we are developing a platform based on these 2 large national projects, and of course our goal is to establish a fully operational and GDPR compliant European data marketplace that works with personal and industrial data, respecting again GDPR and all other relevant legal regulations. So in this regard, Trusts aim to act per se, and as well as a platform federator that will allow the further integration and adoption of other platforms. And to safeguard all privacy concerns, we allocate a lot of our effort on conducting research as per the legal and ethical aspects that apply along the entire value chain, for example, from data providers, owners, to consumers. So now just a brief information about the 2 major national projects on which we are further building on. So the one is Data Market Austria, a lighthouse project in Austria that was successful in establishing a flourishing data center innovation space there. So DMA involved a lot of research in innovative technologies that pertain to cloud interoperability, enabling thus secure data markets, and worked very closely with many innovation agents at the local, at the country level, for example, SMEs, startups, and other relevant entities, enabling this data-centered innovation ecosystem. So here you can see various roles that are part of the data marketplace, and I highly encourage you to visit the website of the project. So in our Trust Consortium, we have Research Studios Austria, who was the coordinator of DMA, and we also have the Know Center and Semantic Web Company as consortium partners in Trusts that were also participating in the DMA project. And IDSA, I'm sure everybody knows IDSA. Maybe you are a member already from your organization. So IDSA is working to implement this vision for the sovereignty and sovereign use of data. And this, of course, can be enabled by its peer-to-peer transactions and federated design. Of course, again, IDSA places a lot of value on European values of data protection, privacy, and security. and wants to become this building block to enable data economy and data market ecosystems. Of course, data sovereignty, I think it's a word that comes to mind when speaking about IDSA in this regard. So coming back to the Trusts project, so our goal is to fully implement this operational and GDPR compliant European data marketplace. And for this, we are working with personal and industrial data, and we are further building and enriching the two aforementioned projects by new functionalities and capabilities. So we want to test our platform in 3 use cases. There are business use cases, and they focus more on the financial and the communication operator industries. So we want to really test how this can be implemented in practice, and at the same time, of course, this has to comply with legal frameworks, and we all want the project to be successful and sustainable beyond its duration. And that is why we conduct a lot of research in the legal items as well as the governance and business model aspects. So as requested, I will now share more information about the key innovations of the project. So now more at a high level, let's say, so we have 2 major key innovations. So we want to really provide this robust legal and ethical framework. And this, of course, is in alliance with our goal for sustainability and compliance with regulations and ethics principles. Moreover, we want the business model to be sustainable, and that means also scalable. So we will share our lessons learned in this regard and support other data market places as well. So that is at the higher level. And now, as requested, I will be sharing more information about other aspects along with an indicative timeline. So our goal is to enable this end-to-end data marketplace service, which is of course scalable, concurrent, cross-domain, and secure. So in this regard, we are working very closely with our stakeholders and eliciting end-user requirements, as well as needs, challenges, and trends. So our goal is to base the architectural design of the Trust platform to these functional requirements in order to ensure its scalability and usability, and of course, the privacy aspects. So in this regard, you can also see towards the end of my slide an indicative timeline as per our plan for the functional specifications, our methodologies, and of course, our architectural design and technical specifications. Now, more about the platform implementation. So we are further integrating the components of DMA and IDSA in the Trust platform, and we are enriching it with more capabilities. So in this regard, we have the following timeline as per the infrastructure setup, as well as our plans for the smart contracts and interoperability solutions. And we have foreseen the deployment of the Trust platform in 3 releases. And please stay tuned, because around that time, we will be conducting many webinars, and we will be sharing more technical information on our progress and the impact achieved. So in terms of privacy preserving, that's a key pillar of our project. So that is why we're working with cryptographically secure protocols. And of course, because we have to deal with privacy sensitive data, for example, personal data, industrial data. So in this regard, the innovation that comes out of Trusts is that we will employ and deploy deep learning algorithms from various frameworks. We will work with neural networks over several nodes. And our goal is to integrate all these new algorithms in the Trust platform, which will be fully operational. And this is also the indicative timeline for these actions. So of course, we validate and demonstrate the platform's capabilities in 3 use cases, and I will share more information on the use cases later on. And we have this time plan as per the trials and the performance evaluation of the use cases. Of course, the legal and ethical framework, this is of primordial importance for us, for reasons of compliance, of course, as well as sustainability. So our legal and ethical experts are working very closely with all partners, use case and technical ones. And in this regard, we also have this timeline as per the guidelines, the continuous ethical assessment that we're conducting during the project, as well as the fact that we will offer policy recommendations to ensure sustainability and exploitation at that time plan. Moreover, we focus a lot on the business side. Of course, we will have to work on aspects, for example, IPR management, standardization, commercialization. So our goal is to provide a feasible, scalable, and sustainable business model for the project that will also address the needs of the many stakeholders that have interest in the project output. So in this regard, we will do a lot of research in taxonomy of relevant business models. Of course, we also allocate a lot of effort in stakeholders engagement. So we will be having many activities to promote the project, but also the main goal of the activities will be to interact with the stakeholders and ensure the uptake of the project's output during and beyond the project's duration. So we also have focus on standardization activities. And of course, as I mentioned, we work a lot with business models. So we will be providing guidelines how the business models can be viable, feasible, and sustainable within the context of the data market. So now in terms of data sets involved, so as you know, we are dealing here with mixed data. So that means personal and industrial, non-personal. And of course, we have to consider all the various roles that come into place and the various rights of the stakeholders, for example, of the data owners. So in this regard, it's maybe useful to highlight that along the digital value chain, there are many different interests. So in Trust, we are trying to achieve this balance between the various interests of the stakeholders while complying, of course, with regulatory frameworks such as GDPR, consumer protection law, etc., while also aiming to have this sustainability of the output of the project. So this is just an indicative list here that shows in which regards we're trying to achieve this balance, also in terms of variation of regimes of ownership of various jurisdictions, for example, individuals or entities that claim to have rights on the data, etc. So now I will share more information about the use cases. So the main goal in this section of my presentation is to highlight how our use cases will showcase the trading and the reuse of data, as well as the sharing of data and services within the context of the Trusts project and beyond after the project's end. And of course, how our output can result and our work can result in added value that can add an innovative approach and lead and further expand the research in this domain. So we want to showcase how we can build on multiple open and proprietary data sources and come up with business-oriented use cases and results that can be tested on the market. So our first use case focuses on anti-money laundering. So in this case, we're working with big data analytics, and our goal is to integrate this data in existing tools of the Trust Consortium partners. And in this regard, we are focusing on detecting crime and money laundering. So we are working with enriched data, and we want to cover the needs of the interested stakeholders that have an interest in performing AML checks. So you can see here, for example, an indicative list of these stakeholders, which is not, of course, exhaustive. There are many more stakeholders that have interest in the output of this use case, besides financial institutions, fiduciaries, or tax advisors. So in terms of the types of data, we're working with open source, closed loop, open public, validated, realistic, anonymized, pseudonymized data. And the Trust platform further enhances this solution that it already has with big data analytics, aiming to ensure the accurate detection of financial crime and money laundering. Of course, we focus on secure sharing and brokerage training of enriched data for AML compliance. So there is the derived business impact. So we want in this way to further increase the efficiency of detection accuracy, to reduce compliance cost, and to of course, increase competitiveness while being in combat of the financial crimes and all aspects pertaining to that. Our second use case focuses on advanced marketing activities. In this case, we're working again with banking and telecommunication data. So our goal is how companies can use this big data analytics to target specific customers at the local level and customize their marketing activities based on insights derived from these big data analytics techniques. So here again, we're working with GDPR anonymized financial banking and telecom data, for example, derived by the CRM databases of the trust partners. And the trust platform offers anonymization, protection from de-anonymization attacks, data synchronization, up-to-date data sets, data correlation, and big data analytics. So we want, in terms of business impact, we want in this case to showcase GDPR compliant marketing, how it can really be implemented at a local level. And this, of course, will lead to greater efficiency and reduced costs. And our third and final use case focuses again on big financial data. So in this regard, we are working on improving human-computer interaction. So our goal is to have chatbots serving as automated assistants and providing this personalized experience to, for example, to bank customers. Here we focus more on wealth management and debt management in this case. So again, we're working with, we want to provide this out-of-the-box big data analytics solution. So again, we're working with customer data here, more with, of course, they're anonymized and we have specific cryptographic protocols in place. So the trust platform really focuses on anonymizing the data before they enter the platform, and they have to comply with all regulations. And we already have many strict ethical controls to ensure that we comply with legal and ethical frameworks. So the platform offers also protection from the anonymization attacks, synchronization, data masking, big data analysis correlation. And the goal will be to really implement the having chatbots, robo-advisors, and adding this scalability when it comes to tailored wealth management services that are focusing more in this use case in debt collection. And for that, we're working with AI, big data, NLP, human-computer interaction. And this, of course, includes big data visualization. So that's just the first draft of our architecture. We will be sharing more updates later on that. So we have identified that the growth of the data market economy is hampered due to, for example, technological and business elements, and we're trying to overcome that. For example, we are trying via the trust platform to address these specific challenges and to make it a really secure platform that will enable all stakeholders to interact with trust, confidently, and security, and successfully in this data marketplace. At the same time, we are addressing all various angles that pertain to the business sides, and that can range from commercial to legal and standardization elements. So in this regard, we will be testing innovative business models and trying to find the right incentives to spur more the data market economy. So in terms of business impact, we have to really mention that fairness and transparency is very important to ensure trust in this regard. So that's why we are working on having these data-driven, viable, scalable business models that can also be customizable as per the stakeholder category and self-sustainable. At the same time, we really want to enable informed, knowledge-based business decisions. As we say in business, we don't want to make decisions based on intuition, but on facts. And that is why in trusts, we are working with predictive models and robo-advisors, because we want to improve the quality and the efficiency of knowledge-based business decisions, while at the same time reducing the costs. So the trust platform has the vision to act as standalone and as a platform federator. And to fulfill this role, we have hierarchical levels of privacy at many levels, and also of certification for data services. We also want to enable the flexible combination of data and services, because we deem that this will further spur the economic growth toward data products and data services. At the same time, we offer an automatic brokerage system because we want to increase the efficiency in this regard, and also this tooling for human brokers that will enable them to create customized offers and products. So with this vision, we want to lower the barrier to entry, for example, for data-driven entrepreneurs, innovators, SMEs, NGOs, or any other stakeholder that has interest to be a participant of the data market. In terms of privacy and data protection, we have identified these 3 high-level challenges on the left side of the screen. So we are trying to address that and have sustainable and scalable solutions by further conducting research and testing our platform in terms of knowledge encryption, cryptographic low multiplicative primitives, computational efficiency, and of course, we're working on joint computation when it comes to independent data sets. Of course, again, we want to focus on increasing confidentiality when it comes to working with commercial data. And we have in our research this multi-stakeholder perspective as we're trying to address the needs of all participating stakeholders in this data market. In terms of data challenges, I would say we have 3 subcategories in this regard. So we have the technical challenges. The trust platform wants to be interoperable. So in this regard, we're facing challenges when it comes to IT standardization. It is a fact that technologies converge, and this way there might be new gaps. So we are trying to overcome this. Moreover, we're testing and working on multi-party computation to ensure its practical implementation. And in order to enable this quickly, set up digital support for actors of the data value chain. We work with semantic technologies because we want to enable the fundability of data sources, the entity linking, and ensure appropriate data quality and commercial confidentiality for the data economy to further flourish. So when it comes to legal items closely related to data, some ideas that come to mind, for example, is some challenges that we face is the commodification of personal data. So this is a complex issue, how we can use that, especially when it comes to personal data and industrial data and the issues that arise. So we're conducting research in that domain. At the same time, we are working closely on techniques that will ensure that customers will not suffer any detriment. It's very important that we have the trust of consumers and customers and all data market participants if we want the data market economy to further flourish. At the same time, automated decision-making activities, of course, entail ethical issues, for example, emotion detection techniques, etc. In trust, we are also working with smart contracts, aiming to further implement their validity and enforceability. And all elements should comply with GDPR and other directives, for example, e-privacy, as well as forthcoming regulations. When it comes to business, data sharing faces or various challenges at the European and global level. There are many trends that are ongoing. So in Trust, we are trying to build this secure platform that we deem is vitally needed for different data providers to interact with confidence and with access in this data market. And we also want to test in this business use cases, these advanced marketing techniques that rely on big data analytics. Moreover, we will do more research on IPR and data stewardship. So our goal is to establish this environment of transparency, trust, and accountability through a predictable legal environment that will enable all business stakeholders to trust and make sure that all the rights of the consumers and citizens are safeguarded so that everybody can participate in this economy. So tomorrow I have another session. I will invite everybody to join. In this case, we organized this with my partners at ESA and Fraunhofer FIT. So I will be having this session with Thorsten Hüßmann, Christoph Lange, and Benjamin Heitmann, who is our technical leader of Trust. So you're welcome to join there as well. And we will be discussing more about how we can restore trust in data markets and data spaces. So please make sure to follow Trust on LinkedIn and Twitter to stay updated as per our new news and developments. And please feel free to contact me also directly should you have any questions after this session.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Super detailed and interesting presentation. I'm collecting questions in parallel, so there's no immediate clarification question. I think for sake of time, we have to move to Christian. because we're starting to get a little bit short on time for this webinar today. But if we would not make all the questions in the Q&A session, I will check with you afterwards, and then we will make available as the final results later on. Okay, so not to worry that some of your questions will not be answered. So thanks again, Alexandra. Very nice. Let's move to Christian, and then see whether we can have a Q&A at the end still. The floor is yours, Christian.
Yes, fine. I hope you can see my screen and can hear me all. So I will try to keep a presentation as short as possible because time is running, and we just have a half an hour for presentation as well as for discussion. And I'm quite sure that there are also some questions, not just by partners, but maybe also by the organizer of the session here. So thank you very much to Andreas and to Vanessa for organizing the session at all, so giving us the opportunity to present our projects here, and also to see, that was also very interesting for me, that we have also some similarities in this trust project where we also are working on. So this project smashHit, where I'm the coordinator of, so I'm a member of ATB, that's an institute here located in the northern area of Germany, in Bremen, is dealing with smart dispatcher for secure controlled sharing of distributed personal and industrial data. So you can imagine from the title that we have some similar goals like trust project, and that we have there some similarities. So project also starts at the beginning of this year, so meaning January 2020, which runs also for 3 years. We have here also a lot of partners from all over Europe involved in kind of this project. And beside of ATB, we have here also the University of Hanover, so which is also involved in trust. So that's maybe also one point where we have also some connections to the other project. And from this area, we just not have the university area, we have also some expertise from the Institute of Legal Informatics, which I think is very important for the project, because the legal side regarding trust, contracts and consent is really, really important to cover that. And overall, what's also important, the whole project and the whole project idea is really driven by use cases, so by our industrial partners. So we have as industrial partners here inside of our project VW. So it's VW commercial cars, not these customer cars coming from Hanover. We have data broker LexisNexis dealing with a lot of information. The big data is daily business for them. Then we have 2 partners from Finland, InfoTripler and Forum Birum. Helsinki, which are dealing with a lot with services in the area of smart city, but we will hear and see this also later during the presentation. And last but not least, Athos. I think it's well known by most of the participants here. It's a big software house from Spain. Okay, let us go on. So we maybe should also see that we have also some historic background. So project smashHit didn't start from nothing. So it's something that we have there already started 6 years ago. Project allocated in the area of big data. It's an Automat project, where we first time tried to really set up a whole ecosystem for the automotive industry. So this was driven by 3 car makers, by Volkswagen, Renault and Fiat, and at this point of time really start to think about how we can give people from the outside access to vehicle data. So what is really needed to make this attractive from them, and how such an ecosystem should be built. And therefore we developed in the scope of the project there a whole ecosystem structure, how to gather the information and then also to bring the information into such a kind of standard format. So we developed there an agreed data model for the automotive industry, this common vehicle information model, ensuring that at the end, people interested in getting vehicle data will have one standard format and one interface to have access to this information. So it's a complete brand independent solution at the end, making the whole solution much more attractive than for users interested in vehicle data. Based on this project, we increased a bit the complexity of the whole system, as well as the data diversity and volume in the cross CPP project. So because we detected that it's not just of importance to have data from one area like the automotive area, so we tried to, no, not we tried, we did, we extend the data model via some functionalities to make it flexible in the sense that we can integrate also data from other areas. Here in cross CPP, we extended in the sense that we had Siemens in there with some smart buildings, and then it was also open, or is open now also to integrate information from smart buildings, but also for other industrial sectors. And what we also did was that we extend the marketplace, which was developed in scope of Automart project with the functionality to integrate there some analytic functions directly in the marketplace itself, especially maybe of high value for small and medium-sized enterprises which do not have the expertise on big data analytics and do not have the capacities of computer power to do that. And also having the charm that we can provide by such analytic tools information which is totally anonymous. One thing we identified during all the project was that we may have or should provide information to service providers because they really ask for that, not for just coming from one area like automotive or smart buildings. Often they really need information from different data silos, and that's exactly this what we address now in smashHit, so that we would like to try to find a solution to secure, control use of data streams spread across multiple data platforms. So that information which is not just stored in one data place, is information which is stored in different data silos, and how to manage such a controlled access, and how to easy then also the whole process to get access to this information, and most of importance, trustful. So as mentioned before, today, if we look what we have there, the problem is that we have this fragmented data sharing landscape. We have a lot of different systems in place, a lot of different solutions, different technologies, different interfaces, making it really, really hard and sometimes also not economically for service provider to get access to this information and to build any services out of that. So they often have to build a lot of interfaces to different systems, and this is not really that what they would have in place and what they are looking for. They have to go for a lot of different agreements, contracts, and they have to take different legal rules into account. So this means at the end that many business opportunities which are available or which are there are locked for the moment because the information is not really accessible. And what we also learned from our project is that we always should put, and we heard this already in the beginning verse from Timo, but also from Malte, we always have to put the user in the center of everything what we did and what we develop here in the scope of the project. And that's really important, that we have to see that we define and develop solutions here which are acceptable and really accepted by our data owner, meaning by the people owning IT devices like, or CPPs like vehicles or some other IoTs which we all have at home or with us, that they really have always the control and always have the possibility to know where their data were used for. So who is using the data for what? If you don't know that, and if you have no easy possibility to have access to this information, they are really often not willing to provide the information for any third party to build any services to out of that. The same is for data provider perspective. If you look at OEM perspective, for example, vehicle manufacturer, they have also the same fear. If they don't know who is using their data, they're also often not willing to provide the information to a market. So, and then we have also the data customer perspective. That's also very important for them. that they have easy instruments at their hand to get access to the information. So they do not like to have too many interfaces, and also they do not like to manage a lot of different consents and contracts with a lot of different systems. So that's exactly then the point in the vision of smashHit, that we would like to find here some effective solution for trusted and secure sharing of such data streams coming from multiple platforms, and to by that also to increase the possibility to build a lot of new services and to increase the added value business out of that. What we do not have in mind is to have one big platform at the end where you can find all data and can access to all data from different areas, like automotive area, from health area, from agriculture area, and so on. I think this is not or could not be the goal at the end. More important is here to find a solution for controlling data, where data is stored, who has access to this information, and easy contracting functionalities. And this is something which we have to put on the top of existing solutions, nothing which has to be handle the whole data at all. So key innovations we have in mind here, I mentioned it already in the beginning. So it's that kind of smart dispatcher, so meaning that we have there such a tool which will handle or support automatic contract agreement and consent agreement over data shared from diverse platforms. And what is also really important is that we have also some trusted tracking of data use, in the sense that you have an easy control as a data user where your data is used, by whom is it used, and for what is it used, and where you have contracts with which partners. So that it's very, very important for a data user at the end to allow others to have access to their information. And this is at the end also the thing where we are working on these data use traceability tools and frameworks, and also automatic contracting functionality. And by that we have also in mind to have some fingerprinting functionalities, making it also possible for data providers at the end to see when there is any data leakage in the whole chain. So project is driven at the end by the needs of two industrial business cases. So one business case is business case by Volkswagen and LexisNexis. LexisNexis provides insurance services. I will talk about it in the next slide. And the second one deals with a lot of information and a lot of data silos regarding smart city services in Helsinki and Finland. So by that, we have also a lot of platforms involved and a lot of different informations. So from Volkswagen, we have platforms provided here, some information coming from commercial vehicles. So it's a big data platform they have installed there. So it's information from vehicles all over Europe. So a lot of this information is coming from Germany, but it's more or less over Europe. And LexisNexis, it's a partner, I mentioned it already at the beginning, which has a lot of information there in the systems, not just from vehicles. They have also a lot of information from other industrial sectors, especially from insurance companies, and they already have services installed there in the area of insurance services. I think Malte talked already about it at the beginning. So which is of value at the end for the customer, but today it's really the problem that the market is not really prepared for that, because there are a lot of obstacles in the way, so that it's really hard for a customer to take part in such a service and really to trust the solutions. And from the second use case in Finland, we have also a lot of different sources where we get information from. So we have a lot of different smart city data. Some of them is open data, others is data which is coming also from the city initiatives there, from Helsinki, also from this Helsinki Haber, where they have open data, but also data which come from the industry area there. Everything needs to be somehow integrated there, and it's planned to build advanced smart city services out of that. And then last but not least, we have also platforms developed in our former project, Automat, as well as Cross PPP, where we have then also access to commercial vehicles and smart buildings. So that's vehicle data is notion of qualified information. I think that's clear that we do not have to talk about that. So when we talk about the vehicle insurance case where Volkswagen and LexisNexis are working on, we can clearly say, okay, connected cars, which we have now on the streets. So 6 years ago, when we started with Automat project, it was really not the case. Just a few cars were really equipped with equipment in the sense that you really can get data out of the cars, but that changed today. So today, at least the cars, most of the cars coming on the market have already equipment. We're enabling them also to gather information and to transfer information to marketplaces, and by that also making others or giving others a possibility to have to have access to this information. And one of these customer interested in getting this information is for sure the insurance industry area, because they would like to also to sell services like usage-based insurance, so that you just have to pay when you use your car, dependent on your usage, or also take into account this new technology which is installed in the cars today, like this advanced driver assistance system, because studies clearly show that when people have this installed and they are activated, and you can control it via this data coming from the car, if the system is installed in the car and if it's also activated, then you can clearly see that there are a lot of reduced rates of accidents at the end. So by that, you can control that. You also can give some reduction of the insurance rate to the user at the end. So, but however, in this whole chain, if you would like to implement such service and would like to give this service to your customers, you have to get information from different platforms. It's not just from the vehicle. You have to involve a lot of partners, and you need to get a lot of consents in the whole chain. Also, a lot of for the owner of the car, he has to give a lot of consent to different partners, to the OEM, that he is able to gather information from the car, to store the information in the marketplace, then to the marketplace to allow LexisNexis to have access to the information, as well as to the insurance company at the end, allowing them to use this information to build such a service and to give a reduced price for the insurance. So this is a very complex process, and this hindering today exactly the installation and the usage of the storage and the service in the market. And it's exactly the goal of this project, to come here to solutions which simplify the whole process, so that we do not have to go for such a lot of interaction with the user at the end. What is also important is that we have here possibility to monitor the consent always over the time. And also to see if the consent is broken, because this can happen if a car is sold to another user, and this will happen during the lifetime of the car, not just once, normally 3 times in the lifetime of a car, that the car will be sold to another user. And then you also have to control this somehow to see, okay, there is another user in the background, and so that the contract needs to be somehow renewed. And what is also important, it's especially also important for the OEM industry, providing data from cars that they really can guarantee that there is also not a misuse of their data or other partners having access or getting access to this information. Therefore, we also plan to have there some fingerprinting of the data at the end to ensure that. And especially by this use case, we have also some time critical nature, because during such contract agreement process, you have to see that this contract needs to be agreed in a very short time frame of seconds. People are not willing to sit in front of a computer for a longer time to get consent in place. So a second place mentioned already before, the smart city place. So in Helsinki, there we have same more or less same situation, that we have also a lot of platforms involved, a lot of different type of information. So we have there not just personal data, industry data, we have also open data coming from the Helsinki area there, and they have also the challenges there to reduce the entry barriers to get access to vehicle data, because that is something where they do not have the access to it for the moment, and they are really interested in getting access to this information to build up new services to the city area there, and therefore they have to see that they find some trustful solutions where people are willing at the end to give access to their information. And that is a big problem which we always find on the market. Okay, to come to a short end, maybe, so that we have also some time to discuss something at the end of our telco here. What we can say is expected impact of the project is, for sure, first, what we would like to achieve is to improve the citizens' trust, enabling them to trace the use of that personal data over diverse platforms in a really, really easy way. So not in the sense that I have one data space where I have all my data as a customer, but at least one space where I have all my contracts and my consents in, so that I can really, really easy see with whom I have contracts for what and for which time, for what agreed. The same we have also need more or less the same for a data provider. Also to trust that the information they provide to the marketplace is not misused by others, so that they have also traceable solutions for that it's not changed, and the information is of high quality. And mentioned before, very important is to simplify the whole process there by some automatic contracting functionalities which we have in mind, so that it's much more easier to get the consent process managed during agreement of a service, and by that at the end increasing the willingness also of the people to provide the IoT data, so that other peoples from third-party service providers really can use the data to build value out of that. And yeah, very important here is to say that we try to achieve a solution which is really easy integrable then in existing environments and existing marketplaces, and which will do not disturb the process flows which they have already installed there. That's also of high importance, because really people from industry and service provider are often not willing to change their existing process structures there. So that's a very short overview. I try to keep it short, so that we find also some time for clarifying questions from you.
Thank you very much, Christian. I appreciate very much the presentation. Lots of details too. So I think that's quite helpful to understand the ambitions of these mixed data platform projects. So we can go to the Q&A session. I received one question so far from the audience, but we have prepared also some additional questions, which I think fit quite well with what you presented. So let me start with the first topic, which both Alexandra and you raised. This was concerning the federation or interoperability of the platforms. And one question from the audience, this is a very specific question to Alexandra, was that or whether trusts have considered linking the platform with other platforms dedicated to manage energy, something like a prosumer platform kind of thing.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. That is our goal. So within the context of the project, we want to offer trusts as a standalone and platform federator. And of course, after the duration of the project, we are willing to collaborate with other projects. So this is, of course, a possibility in this regard.
Okay, very good. So if you want, I can connect you with a colleague who asked the question. So
absolutely, and kindly ask.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you so much. And we are also looking for our stakeholder advisory board and other networks. So I'm very open to connections.
Very good. A little broader question on this federation, and either you, Alexandra, or Christian are happy to answer if you want, or both. Comes from one of our colleagues of the BDVA standards subgroup, Ray Walsh. The question is, what is the kind of general approach to enable this interoperability, considering that different data platform vendors may have different data-driven solutions? So what's kind of the standardized baseline you can start from, or what's your view on that? Either Christian, Alexandra, whoever wants.
So that's a good question. So I personally think that there will be not one solution at the end where we have one standard for everything, but it's really important to have some systems which will be at least some sector specific. So like we worked on an Automat project, so that you do not have brand specific solution at the end. So this will mean for service provider interested in getting data out of such a solution that they have to build a lot of different interfaces to a lot of different platforms, and this will make the whole system very unattractive. So it's better to have then their solution elite on sectors like automotive sector and have standards there for such a sector, making things much more easier, much more attractive for the outside people, so that they do not have to maintain different data models from VW, from BMW, from Renault, and whatever, and also different interfaces. This is not what they are looking for. They are looking really for some integrated solutions there. However, regarding what we have here, for example, for smashHit in mind, regarding consent and contract sharing, I think there we need something which is on top of that. So exactly where Malte talked at the beginning, so not in the sense that we had a data space, it's maybe also a possibility for personal data for a specific person, but at least that a specific person have a place where he can has access to all his contracts, so that he can easily see, okay, data from this and this IoT device, I have a contract with this and this service provider, so that you do not have to maintain as a normal citizen a lot of different contracts in different systems. You have to maintain that, but you have one place where you can have an overview about everything. That's much more easier for them to handle that.
Thank you very much. Anything from your side, Alexandra, you want to add on this topic?
Yes, I agree with Christian that it's a realistic approach. From the trust side, we're trying to have this big all-encompassing platform. Of course, we have the specific business use cases, but as mentioned before, we want to further test the platform up beyond the project and after it's sent also in other domains, for example, the energy. So we're having more. Our vision is to become more a platform federator, and of course I agree with Christian, there are many challenges to consider in this regard, and we are working towards this goal very intensively.
Thank you very much. I have one more question from Malte, who typed his question here too, which was to Christian, whether it's a little qualification question, whether it was correct to understand that there's room for data fingerprinting or watermarking also in open ecosystems.
I was mute.
Okay. I thought the question shocked you so much, but go ahead, please.
Yes, this is another screen, so therefore I have to change the screen to unmute myself. Yeah, it's a good question. So I don't have an easy answer for that. So we this fingerprinting at the end, it's something which is of really importance for the data providers. So that is what we understood, especially from VW. So they have the Dieselgate, we all know that, and they don't want to have Datagate at the end. So for them, it's really, really important that they really know who is using data and who was the last one used data, so that you really can identify at the end easily data leakage. So I know, okay, there was a leakage and there was something broken. So this is something where we have to take care of. If we can find there an easy solution for everyone, I don't know, because this is something which you also have to put on the top on the marketplace as a functionality to control your data, which you provide into your service provider at the end. But we have to work on consents for that, and that is also something where we are working on in smashHit, because we have not just to engage people to give access to the information, we also have to engage the industry partner to bring technology on the market, because as long as technology providers like Adobe are not willing really to bring the data on the market, so we have no chance to sell our data. It depends on the industry partners.
So it seems the term or the topic on interoperability has quite some interest. So the questions regarding this increase by the minute we speak. So there was an additional question to Alexandra. What is the exact interoperability view of your project? I'm not so sure whether this was already answered before, but maybe you can just quickly elaborate again.
Yes, so we're working with various data sets and also with various technological elements from the previous projects that we are further developing. So in this regard, we are working more to ensure that the platform is interoperable among the different standards, data types, and business cases, and acts as a platform federator after the project's duration. I hope I have answered the question.
Okay, unfortunately we're running out of time, so we have unfortunately 2 minutes left. I responded to many of you in the chat box already that I will be happy to put your questions also to the colleagues directly, so you can clarify offline. I can also offer, if during this discussion there's really additional insights you want to have also included as a visible outcome of this session, feel free to update your slides and send us an updated slide set. We will make them publicly available anyways at the end. So sorry for running out of time now, but I think we have to be a little bit strict here because I don't know how long the system will remain open in this webinar setting. So as I said, you will get some additional question afterwards, and we will also, and this leads me to the kind of concluding slide, we'll also, of course, have some follow-ups. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, here we go. Exactly. So as said at the beginning, we will make available the webinar recording of today and also of the other webinars during this week. And also the slides we will make available on the PPP website, bigdatavalue.eu. So if you have any updates of the slides and have not yet sent us, please do so. We will also create a very brief summary of these online sessions with the main aim to identify common points of interest. So I take it from today, the topic of federation is really a key point of interest. I personally wasn't aware that federation is such a topic already addressed, because my impression is that already bring data together on a single platform is quite a challenge. So federation adds more to that, but it's essential, of course, to not have silos again. And we will take all this input, also the questions that still arrive on the chat box, and we'll use this to let's kind of create the seed for the next round of webinars. So we'll really pick some of the topics which we may then follow up with a more focused webinar in the coming weeks or month, involving the projects who would be really relevant to the discussion, also involving previous PPP projects, ongoing PPP projects, and additional colleagues from the BDVA task forces. So with this, let me thank you very much for joining today. Let me thank you, the presenters, our colleagues from the Commission, for providing their insight, the 2 excellent project presentations, giving lots of details to see what goes on in these mixed data platform projects. Thank you all for participating. We had 50 participants during the webinar, so this is really great to see the interest. We have lots of questions still popping in. That's also great. Any other information, follow-up information, information about the other webinars during this week, and also complementary webinars of the PPP, you can find on the Big Data website that you see here on my final slide. And with that, thank you very much, and hope to see you in the future, and let's keep collaborating in the PPP. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.